cop gets death penalty. Then her German shepherd does the unthinkable. The Hillsdale County Courthouse stood imposing against the gray November sky, its limestone columns a testament to the permanence of justice, or at least the appearance of it. Inside courtroom 3, Detective Sarah Lawson stood as the jury foreman rose the slip of paper in his hand containing words that would determine whether she lived or died. At 34, Sarah had spent 12 years on the police force, the last 5 as a decorated homicide detective. Her angular face had lost the healthy color it once held during long runs with her German Shepherd Rex. 3 months in county lockup had replaced it with the pallid complexion of someone who had seen too little sun and too much fluorescent lighting. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Howard Brennan asked. "We have, Your Honor." The foreman replied, his hands trembling slightly, "On the charge of murder. In the first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Sarah Lawson, guilty." The word fell like a physical blow. Sarah's shoulders stiffened, but she remained standing, her police training evident in her controlled reaction. In the gallery, her sister Jenny's sharp intake of breath punctuated the hushed courtroom, while Michael Reeves, a former crime reporter who had been investigating inconsistencies in the case, placed a steadying hand on her arm. The charge was clear: first-degree murder of District Attorney Victor Chambers, found shot to death in his home office 8 months earlier. The evidence against Sarah seemed overwhelming. Her service weapon identified as the murder weapon, her fingerprints on the gun a witness, placing her near Chambers' house that night, and most damning, threatening texts from her phone to the victim regarding a case he had refused to prosecute. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed as Michael guided Jenny through the chaos toward the parking lot. "We need to get to your place," he said once they were safely in his car. "There's something I need to show you that I couldn't bring into the courtroom." The drive to Jenny's modest suburban home took 20 minutes, each spent in tense silence. As they pulled into the driveway, a deep, resonant bark greeted them from inside the house. "Rex has been like this since they arrested Sarah," Jenny explained as she unlocked the door. "It's like he knows something's wrong. Some days he just sits by the window, waiting for her car." The German shepherd that met them in the entryway was magnificent, black and tan, with intelligent eyes that seemed to hold a depth of understanding beyond his canine nature. He pressed his nose into Jenny's hand in greeting before turning expectantly toward the door as if hoping Sarah might follow behind. "I'm sorry, boy," Jenny said softly, kneeling to stroke his head. "She's not with us." Michael opened his laptop at the kitchen table. "Jenny, I think Sarah was set up, and I think I know why." He displayed files he'd compiled over months of investigation. 3 weeks before Chambers was murdered, Sarah was leading a task force investigating a series of drug-related deaths. The victims all had the same unusual synthetic opioid in their system. What wasn't public knowledge was that the task force had traced the distribution network back to several officers in the department's narcotics division. Sarah brought her findings to Chambers, expecting him to authorize arrests. He pulled up emails from a confidential source within the DA's office. Instead, he shut down the investigation. Why would he do that? Jenny leaned forward. "I think he was on someone's payroll." Michael showed her bank statements with regular deposits to an offshore account in Chambers' name, and I think Sarah was getting too close to figuring out who. The implications hung in the air between them. If Michael was right, Sarah hadn't killed Chambers. She had been framed by corrupt officers protecting themselves and their illicit operation. As if sensing the shift in atmosphere, Rex rose and moved to the window, his posture alert as he looked out at the darkening street. A low growl rumbled in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Jenny asked, moving to join him. Through the gathering dusk, she could make out a black SUV parked across the street, its windows tinted too darkly to see inside. As she watched, the vehicle pulled away from the curb and drove slowly past the house. Something in the deliberate way it moved sent a chill up Jenny's spine. "Michael, I think we're being watched. If we're right about this, a lot of powerful people have reason to be worried about what we might do next." He turned to her. His decision made, "We need to find proof of who really killed Chambers, and we need to do it before Sarah's sentencing." 3 days after the verdict, the sentencing phase concluded with Judge Brennan accepting the jury's recommendation for the death penalty. The news hit Jenny like a physical blow. Her sister now had only months of appeals before facing execution for a crime she didn't commit. That evening, Michael failed to arrive for their planned meeting at Jenny's house. After 2 hours of increasing worry, Jenny drove to his apartment. Rex, sitting alertly in the passenger seat beside her, the police cars and ambulance outside Michael's building confirmed her worst fears. Flashing lights illuminated the night as officers cordoned off the area with crime scene tape. "What happened?" she asked a uniformed officer at the perimeter, trying to keep her voice steady. The officer gave her a cursory glance. "Ma'am, this is an active crime scene. I'll have to ask you to step back." "Please," Jenny persisted. "Michael Reeves is a friend of mine. We were supposed to meet tonight." "You're Jenny Lawson, aren't you? Sarah Lawson's sister?" When Jenny nodded, he continued bluntly, "Mr. Reeves is dead, apparent suicide, gun to the head." The words hit Jenny like physical blows. Michael's suicide. It was inconceivable. Just yesterday, he had been energized, determined to uncover the truth. There was a note. The officer continued, "Something about being sorry for pursuing false theories about your sister's case, that it was a waste of time." The fabrication was so transparent, Jenny almost laughed despite her shock. Michael would never have written such a note. He had been murdered and made to look like he took his own life out of regret for helping her. Back in her car with the doors locked, she finally allowed the tears to come. Rex whined softly, pressing his warm body against hers in silent comfort. "They killed him, Rex?" she whispered, burying her face in the dog's thick fur, "just like they killed Chambers and framed Sarah. And now we're the only ones left who know." At home, she discovered an envelope that had been delivered by courier that morning from Michael, with instructions to open it only if something happened to him. Inside was a key to a storage locker and a handwritten note. "The proof is here. Be careful who you trust." The next day, Jenny and Rex visited the storage facility on the outskirts of town. Unit 2 on 17 contained a filing cabinet and a plastic storage bin filled with Michael's meticulous research evidence logs, showing items that had later vanished from official records, financial records of officers, with unexplained deposits, and a plastic evidence bag containing what appeared to be a torn piece of fabric with a dark stain. A note attached read, "Found caught on fence behind Chambers' house. Police missed this. Blood confirmed as Chambers, but fibers don't match anything in his home. Getting tested privately." As they were examining the documents, Rex suddenly tensed, alerting Jenny to the sound of a car approaching. They quickly gathered the most crucial evidence and hid as a police cruiser rolled slowly past the officer, inside scanning each unit number with deliberate precision. When the cruiser finally departed, Jenny released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That was too close, she whispered to Rex, whose vigilance had likely saved them from discovery. They took refuge with Dr. Eleanor Hayes, Sarah's former psychology professor, who had testified as a character witness during the trial in the safety of Eleanor's remote house. Jenny spent days reviewing Michael's files, gradually assembling a clearer picture of the conspiracy. The synthetic opioid at the center of Sarah's investigation was being manufactured in a lab controlled by corrupt officers, then distributed through a network of dealers who kicked back a percentage to their police protectors. District Attorney Chambers had initially been on their payroll, explaining his reluctance to pursue cases Sarah brought him. But something had changed. Michael's notes suggested Chambers had begun cooperating with a federal investigation. Most damning was evidence suggesting Captain James Mercer, head of the Narcotics Division, had been at Chambers' house the night of the murder. Security camera footage from a house 2 doors down showed a vehicle matching Mercer's leaving the area around the estimated time of death. Among Michael's possessions was a prepaid phone with a single program number labeled only as Inside Source. After deliberation, Jenny decided to risk calling. "My name is Jenny Lawson," she began cautiously when someone answered. "Michael Reeves gave me this number." A pause, then a female voice deliberately pitched low. "Michael is dead. I know I have his files. I know about Mercer, the drugs, all of it." Another pause. "Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m., the boathouse at Westlake Park. Come alone." The meeting revealed that Michael's source was Alicia Ramirez, a police cadet who had discovered discrepancies in case files connected to Mercer's team. Her motivation was personal. Her brother had died from the same synthetic opioid after allegedly meeting with a police officer. "Mercer is planning something big," Alicia informed Jenny. "A major shipment is coming in 3 days. I've overheard fragments of conversation. They're using a warehouse owned by one of Chambers' former clients. If we can document the transaction, catch them with the drugs in hand, that would break open the whole case," Jenny finished. "But how do we get proof without getting caught?" "I can get us access," Alicia said, "but it's risky. If they spot us, we're dead." As they formulated their plan, Jenny realized Rex could be crucial to their mission. Sarah trained him for drug detection. She explained to Eleanor later, "If we can get him close enough to that warehouse during the shipment, he could confirm the presence of the drugs without us having to get inside." Eleanor gripped the steering wheel tightly as they drove home. "You can't seriously be considering this." "I don't have a choice," Jenny replied, reaching over to stroke Rex's head. "Sarah's appeal will fail without concrete evidence linking Mercer to the drugs and Chambers' murder. This shipment might be our only chance." The abandoned Carson shipping warehouse loomed against the night sky, illuminated only by a single security light. Near the loading dock, Jenny, Alicia, and Rex watched from the darkness of a neighboring lot concealed behind stacked shipping containers. According to Alicia's information, Mercer and his team were expected around midnight to receive a shipment from their supplier. "That's Detective Wallace's vehicle," Alicia whispered, pointing to a black SUV parked near the side entrance. "He's Mercer's right hand. If he's already here, the others won't be far behind. Rex sat motionless beside Jenny, his training evident in his perfect stillness. Despite the tension in the air, they had decided against bringing him inside. Instead, when the shipment arrived, they would use his reaction to confirm the presence of the synthetic opioid from a safe distance. "Remember the plan," Jenny said softly. "We document them receiving the drugs, record any conversations that might implicate them in Chambers' murder, then leave undetected. We're not confronting anyone." As they prepared to move closer, Rex suddenly stiffened, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Jenny whispered, instantly on alert. The German shepherd's attention was fixed on something beyond the shipping containers. Following his gaze, Jenny caught a glimpse of movement, the brief flash of a tactical vest as someone moved between buildings on the far side of the lot. Her blood ran cold. Someone else was here, someone who didn't want to be seen. Despite this concern, they proceeded with their plan. Alicia led them to a partially concealed observation point overlooking the main floor where they could see without being easily spotted. At precisely midnight, a panel truck backed up to the loading dock. Two more vehicles arrived, a black sedan that Jenny recognized as Captain Mercer's personal car, and another police SUV with departmental markings discreetly removed. "Start recording," Jenny whispered, and Alicia activated the camera on her shoulder. Below them, Captain Mercer entered with 3 other officers from the Narcotics Division, all members implicated in Sarah's investigation. The transaction proceeded efficiently. Crates were opened, contents inspected, a metal briefcase exchanged, and instructions given for distribution. Rex's reaction confirmed their suspicions. Though he made no sound, his entire body tensed at the opening of the crates, his nose working overtime, clearly detecting the synthetic opioid. "We've got them!" Alicia breathed her camera, capturing the entire exchange. The moment of triumph was short-lived. A sharp crack echoed through the warehouse, the side door being forced open, followed by a new voice. "Federal agents, everyone on the ground." Now, chaos erupted as the drug suppliers bolted for their truck, while Mercer and his officers drew weapons, shouting contradictory claims about being undercover police. Gunfire erupted as federal agents stormed the main floor. "We need to get out," Alicia hissed, backing toward the fire exit at the rear of their position. But their path was suddenly blocked by Detective Wallace, who had apparently fled upstairs at the first sign of the raid. His expression shifted from surprise to rage as he recognized Alicia in her cadet uniform. "You," he spat, drawing his weapon. "I knew someone was feeding information to that reporter." Jenny instinctively stepped in front of Alicia, protective despite her terror. "Federal agents are everywhere. You're finished, Wallace." "Maybe," he acknowledged, his gun unwavering, "but I can still tie up loose ends." His gaze shifted between them. "You have evidence, don't you? Something that implicates us in Chambers' murder." Before either woman could respond, a blur of black and tan fur launched through the air. Rex, sensing the immediate threat to Jenny, had reacted with explosive speed, clamping his powerful jaws around Wallace's gun arm and driving him to the ground with the full force of his 80-pound body. The detective screamed in pain and surprise, his weapon clattering across the floor as Rex maintained his grip, growling fiercely, but with the controlled aggression of his police training, immobilizing rather than maiming. "The camera!" Jenny shouted to Alicia over the commotion below. "Make sure it's safe." Alicia secured the camera inside her jacket as Jenny grabbed Wallace's fallen gun, keeping it trained on him while Rex continued to hold him pinned. The detective's eyes blazed with hatred, but he had ceased struggling against the German Shepherd's formidable restraint. As federal agents converged on their position, Alicia discreetly removed the memory card from her camera, replacing it with a blank one before calling out for help. The critical evidence was tucked safely in the lining of her boot, their insurance that Sarah's exoneration wouldn't get lost in the bureaucracy of a larger investigation. The FBI field office was a flurry of activity at 2 a.m., with agents processing multiple suspects and cataloging evidence from the warehouse raid. Jenny, Alicia, and Rex were escorted to a conference room where they met with Special Agent in Charge, Catherine Brennan. "You have evidence pertinent to our investigation," she stated without preamble. "I'd like to see it." "First, we need your commitment," Jenny replied. "My sister is innocent, and we need immediate action to stay her execution and reopen her case." Agent Brennan studied them thoughtfully. "You understand that making demands of federal agents could be construed as obstruction? We understand that powerful people have already killed to keep this quiet," Alicia countered, "and that Detective Lawson was framed by officers who are still free to destroy evidence." Brennan's expression softened slightly. "Your sister's case has been on our radar. The DEA investigation that uncovered this distribution network flagged potential corruption in your local police department months ago, but we haven't had enough evidence to move on it." She slid a legal pad across the table. "Write down everything you have and where it's located. I'll assign agents to secure it immediately. In return, I give you my word that will expedite the review of evidence pertaining to Sarah Lawson's case." By dawn, the machinery of federal justice was in motion. The evidence Jenny and Alicia provided corroborated the FBI's ongoing investigation and added crucial connections to Chambers' murder. Most damning was the fabric sample Michael had recovered. Forensic testing confirmed it matched a tear in Mercer's tactical jacket, placing him at the murder scene. 3 days later, in an emergency hearing that drew national media attention, Sarah Lawson's conviction was vacated and she was released pending a new investigation into the circumstances of Chambers' death. The evidence against Mercer and his team was overwhelming, with multiple officers now cooperating with authorities in exchange for reduced sentences. The reunion between Sarah and Rex at the prison gates became the image that defined the case for the public. The German Shepherd, normally disciplined and controlled, broke protocol, entirely bounding toward Sarah with joyous abandon, nearly knocking her over in his excitement. The photos captured something pure and uncomplicated in a case otherwise defined by corruption and complexity, the absolute love and loyalty of a dog for his person. In the weeks that followed, as the full extent of the conspiracy unraveled, Rex's role became a focal point of public fascination. The warehouse footage eventually released during Mercer's trial showed the German Shepherd's decisive action in extraordinary detail. His split-second assessment of the threat to Jenny, his precise disabling of Wallace without causing serious injury, his unwavering protection until help arrived. He did exactly what he was trained to do. Sarah explained during one interview, her hand resting on Rex's head as he sat proudly beside her. K-9 officers are taught to protect their handlers and innocent civilians. Even though I couldn't be there, he recognized Jenny as family and acted accordingly. But those who had witnessed Rex throughout the ordeal understood it went beyond training. The German Shepherd had demonstrated an almost uncanny awareness of the situation, from his initial distrust of Mercer's photograph to his vigilance during their investigation, to his perfectly timed intervention at the critical moment. 1 year after Sarah's exoneration, the county courthouse hosted the sentencing hearing for Captain James Mercer and his co-conspirators. Sarah attended, sitting between Jenny and Alicia, who had become close friends through their shared ordeal. Rex lay at Sarah's feet, his alert presence drawing admiring glances from throughout the courtroom. Judge Eleanor Hayes, coming out of retirement specifically for this case, delivered the sentences with clear-eyed justice: life imprisonment without possibility of parole for Mercer, substantial sentences for his accomplices beyond the devastating harm to individuals and families affected by the drugs you distributed. She stated, "You committed perhaps an even greater offense against justice itself. You weaponized the trust placed in you as officers of the law, using it to victimize the innocent and protect the guilty." Outside the courthouse, a small group of reporters waited. Sarah normally avoided such attention, but today felt different, a closing chapter that deserved proper acknowledgement. Detective Lawson called one reporter, "How does it feel to see the people who framed you finally face justice?" Sarah paused, considering her words carefully. Rex pressed against her leg, a steady presence grounding her in the moment. "Justice is never just about punishment," she answered. "It's about truth being recognized and systems being corrected. What happened to me revealed serious flaws in how we investigate, prosecute, and convict. If those flaws aren't addressed, my case won't be the last wrongful conviction." "What about your dog?" another reporter asked. "He's become something of a symbol in this case." Sarah smiled, looking down at Rex, who maintained his dignified bearing despite the attention. "Rex reminds us of something important, that loyalty and persistence matter. When systems fail, it's often individual acts of courage that lead us back to truth." As they walked away from the courthouse, Sarah reflected on the journey of the past year. The Conviction Integrity Unit she now helped lead had already identified 3 other potentially wrongful convictions for review. Michael Reeves had been posthumously awarded the Pulitzer Prize for his investigative work. Alicia had graduated from the police academy at the top of her class, committed to embodying a new standard of integrity in law enforcement. And Rex, the extraordinary German shepherd who had never wavered in his loyalty, continued to serve in his own way. Beyond accompanying Sarah in her daily work, he now participated in a program visiting schools, where children learned about justice service and the remarkable bond between humans and their canine partners. That evening, as twilight settled over the city, Sarah took Rex for their customary run along the river path. Halfway through their route, she paused at a bench overlooking the water, sitting down to watch the fading light play across the surface. Rex settled beside her, alert but content. "We made it, boy," she said softly, running her hand through his thick fur. Against all odds, Rex looked up at her with those intelligent eyes that seemed to understand far more than anyone might expect. In his unwavering gaze, Sarah found the same truth that had sustained her through the darkest days of her imprisonment, that some bonds transcend circumstance, some loyalties remain unbreakable, and sometimes when justice seems most distant, it arrives in unexpected forms, including, perhaps most remarkably, in the steadfast heart of a German shepherd who refused to accept a world without his person in it,